So you want me to start or?
Great course. It was fantastic course.
Is that course still offered, or?
Not to my knowledge. You talk about the Quran course?
The Quran, like any of like the introduction to Islam, was really very good, very interesting. But you have officially retired, right?
Oh, I officially retired in 2005, 2006. But then, after retirement, there was nobody to teach any of the Islam courses. They didn't hire anyone at that time. So for another 6 years, I think like 10, 12, 13, I taught only one course per semester, which was
I
more or
think
less.
that was when we were your guests.
Yeah.
Sometime in that period, because you would teach the one course, and then we would have to wait for like another one.
Right.
Was that a St. Mary's or?
St. Mary's, yeah.
Okay.
No, but wait, because they were not taught at the same time.
Yeah.
So you attended first, maybe it was in the fall, introduction of Islamic tradition, and in the spring.
Yes.
No, I think at that time I was teaching full time. I believe really it was 2005, 2006, something.
I'm pretty sure it was later than that we attended.
Oh, maybe.
I think it was maybe around 2010.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I was teaching at that time, just one person. And then they got full timer.
Yes.
Couple of years. But I don't think he has the same interest. From what I hear, of course I'm not in the loop, that he started focusing on like cultural study of Muslims in South Asia. Something of that nature. That's a specialty. But I haven't heard of anyone teaching science. Actually, it was the only course available in the whole maritime area, to my knowledge. Even Dalhousie, a bigger university, but of course the Department of Religious Studies at St. Mary's is even bigger than that. But in that, a lot more students. I don't think they have that. So it wasn't.
Do you still give the khutbahs at Friday prayers every now and then, or?
No, yeah. No, alhamdulillah. For some time there was good brother, computer science who teaches at that. He's good, and he speaks good Arabic and English. So he was giving the khutbah, and now we got a full-time imam.
Okay.
Sheikh Abdullah, you see him?
Yeah, Imam. Yeah, I saw him
He's
today.
a qualified graduate from Azhar.
Oh,
He has also a master's degree, in fact.
mashallah. Okay, and that was the full-time Imam.
Yeah, he's full-time, inshallah. Oh, leave them alone.
I think
They wanna come
I
there.
think they know it.
Just to let them
Yeah.
just make sure some of them.
It's all voluntary
I
voluntary
just want
listeners.
to make sure that they know, in case they didn't know.
Pretty sure
They know.
do know.
I don't mind, you know.
Okay.
I think from the microphone they want to do something on also.
But I don't think the microphone's going out.
Oh,
I think it's just for the internet.
okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what the sister said.
So we need to talk to them.
We can't broadcast.
Oh, like attach like a speaker
Like,
outside
there,
or
yeah,
something.
this is not Bosnia
Oh yeah.
or some Arab country
Call it
where that
noise
might
pollution.
go out.
That's noise pollution, Eric.
Do we remember that?
Because I was here
They would say,
before.
we don't want to hear the multiple,
Really?
you know.
When it was because it used to be a little like just a small building before they built the masjid, right?
I don't remember what there was a building here,
Yeah.
and then we moved the prayer halls in the basement there.
Because I remember in 2001 I was at the Maritime Muslim Academy School, and I was I think I did grade 2 there, and we used to pray. I think it was here, but it was a small building.
There was a little
flat
building here on this
Yeah.
site. I don't remember that building at all.
Okay.
That was
If
in,
you want to start, because I have to finish by 7, I have to travel after Fajr tomorrow.
Oh, you're.
Kill start.
Yeah.
But I didn't cancel because I made the commitment.
No, in that case we should.
Yeah,
we
start,
should
yeah.
Yeah. So the maximum I was thinking that until Maghrib, because including Q&A. But if we finish before that, it's shorter. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Today, inshallah, we're continuing with the series of Ulum al-Quran, or literally the sciences of the Quran. This is actually a fourth topic, because we started that several months back, so it is just the last and most important topic. Even then, we are still in the first subtopic of that broad category, number 4. That is reasons for revelation. That is, to understand the Quran, one must understand if there is any special occasion or reason for the revelation of a particular ayah in the Quran. So in the on the projection here, we have just an abbreviation of it, RF, R, reason for revelation. Of course, in Arabic, it's known as Asbab al-Nuzul. So that's one. So we have already covered quite a bit of coverage in this an area and reasons for revelation as to what does it mean. Number 1, we spoke also in the last session about why is it important to understand the Quran properly and not fall into mistakes. And today, inshallah, we're continuing with this one, reasons for revelation. And if we have time, I think we probably have time to start on the next subtopic of the Meccan and Medinan revelation. The topic for today, like I say, continuation. How do we know or get information about these so-called reasons for revelation? The majority of the scholars at least say there are 2 major sources. One is what is being authenticated, authentically reported. It's just like in hadith, there are strong hadith, there are weak, so that the same criteria of scrutiny applies. Something reported from a companion of the Prophet ﷺ in the first place, first category. Now, A companion here, by the way, means someone who was living at the time when these events took place, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, there are some scholars like Jalal al-Din al-Suyuti from the medieval Muslim scholar, who was also one of the icons in the discipline of the sciences of the Quran. He also said that we could accept also reports from the second generation after the companions, because these are supposed to be like the students of the companion. The term used normally for that is at-tabi'in. Literally it means follower, but it means actually the generation who learned from the companions. His position is also defensible so long as there is authentication that the reports are credible. Because at-tabi'in, some of them even were living at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but were small kids, for example, or infants. But even then, many of the Sahaba lived long enough to also teach that second generation. So they're learning. Sahaba were companions to them. So there's not that much time gap where the issue of forgetfulness and authenticity sometimes is questioned. So that's basically the two views on it. Secondly, like I was just talking about it is not any report. There are maybe some reports that are false, fabricated. So the same criteria that is applied in the science of hadith and hadith verification should be used here as well. And usually, like in hadith science, it is two-pronged. One is the chain of narration, al-isnad, chain of narration. Like in hadith, for example, if somebody said, I heard such and such tabi'i, second generation, say that I learned from the companions of the Prophet that this happened, or just something to that effect, then the first thing to look into as to whether each and every one in the chain of narration is credible. And credibility here includes, you can pull chairs from the back, inshallah. Well, from the back or here, if maybe, because that all of them are honest, all of them are in the back and the ladies' side, or from here, wherever it should. I think there might be some here also. Piety in itself, again, is insufficient. Because a person could be pious, but forgetful. You see what I mean? So they should have good memory. Without getting you into confused details, because this, inshallah, I hope we can have a series also on the science of hadith. They say that a person even who was both pious and have good memory in his youth, when he narrated certain hadith, it's accepted. The same person, if there's a report, authentic report, that when he was old, his memory became weak and started mixing things up. You get my point? So sometimes, when did he narrate that hadith? Was it in the time when he was in his full capability or not? It's a very interesting that was unprecedented really in the science of verification. But there is another branch also. Sometimes there's the narrators or the compilers or collectors of hadith may have some trust already, or they have no knowledge of lack of credibility of all the narrators. But then the text itself raised some questions. And that is known as al-nas, al-matn. نقد المتن. It is not only criticism or verification of chain of narration, but the text itself. There could be a number of reasons, because compilers of hadith are human. They did tremendous effort, Jazakallah khair, but a human is a human, and he judged by the reports available to him. For example, if the narration that this is the occasion of revelation, for example, contains factual error, a factual error, like saying, this happened when of the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Amr ibn al-As, for example, was a witness. And it is known that he did, and it was in Mecca, and it was known that Amr ibn al-As and Sufyan, Abu Sufyan, accepted Islam only in Medina. So an error like that, no matter how much there are some credibility of narrators, a factual error like that shows that perhaps, there's a question mark to say a factual error. There also, like we said, the case in hadith, it could happen also for revelation or something. And عملية, they call it al-wada'. علماء الحديث call it al-wada'. Even though this apply more to verification, these somebody seemed to have a personal interest in inventing a hadith or distorting it for their own benefit. For example, a person used to sell harisa, but be careful here, harisa, even in the Arab world today, is different. Harisa in Ahl al-Sham, in people in Syria, means what? لا, in Sham. Harisa, sweet, sweet. For our brothers and sisters in Libya, you know what harisa is? Burning hot pepper. So they make it like the couscous. It's just like sriracha, you know this hot sauce. So imagine, you understand, I'll get you your desserts and pour hot. So in other words, he says, whatever the meaning in his mind, al-harisatu tashuddu al-dhahr. That this harisa really is very good for your back. He happened to be a seller of harisa. Or someone who says, al-bathinjan shifa'un min kulli da'. The eggplant is a cure from all diseases. My goodness, if that is the case, every inch should be planted with bathinjan. We had lots of diseases around. You get my point. So in other words, you have to make sure that the reporters are careful. The textual criticism also point if there is a clear error, factual or otherwise, that make us stop at that and be careful. But now there is a realistic question. Some people may ask, there are some books, and I've seen that, there are some books on Asbab al-Nuzul, or chapters in books on the reasons for revelation of certain ayat in the Quran. But even among those that are credible enough and there is no clear error to reject it, they say they could be more than one report. More than one report as attributed the reason for the revelation of a given ayah. Now, some people react in a way that is not really scholarly. That's intellectual laziness. At worst, they say, we don't have any trust. And by the way, they can apply that to hadith. We don't have any trust. Here are people who are considered to be credible, but yet they're contradictory. But the word contradictory here is just, you might say, rush to judgment, unnecessarily. And there is a basic rule, whether you study the proper way of understanding the Quran or the science of hadith. And instead of saying one of them must be wrong, you have to look first as to whether they are reconcilable first. Not twisted, not artificial. One has to make sure that they're not really contradictory. If they are contradictory, there are also answers to that. But first of all, are they really totally different? I'll give you an example from the Quran that we discussed in a previous session. I think it was last week. When some people say the Quran is contradictory. How? Because in the Quran it says, وَحَيْثُ مَا كُنْتُمْ وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. The meaning of that. Wherever you turn your face, there is the presence or countenance of Allah. And they say, look, this ayah basically means it doesn't matter where you direct your face. You can pray because there is the presence of Allah everywhere. But their problem, if people misinterpret it this way, that's less harmful than what follows, that they say the Quran is contradictory, because in the Quran also says that you should pray only towards Al-Masjid Al-Haram. And it is this way that they confuse people who are even educated, but not enough in depth about the Islamic discipline. Just like we learn in schools and universities, usually schools in many Muslim countries, people are exposed to something very superficial. How can you resolve that? Is that a contradiction, really? Yes, I know it's not a contradiction, but be prepared to someone who keep pushing you. What evidence do you have that it's not a contradiction? Because you're a Muslim, you're so, partisan to your faith. Anyone knows the answer? Maybe nobody was here last time. Jazakallah khair. Take care of that. You take it. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah. Is that a contradiction?
Maybe this ayat came before that. This is the whenever you can turn, everywhere is Allah. Okay, because when ayat came that you have to move your direction from here to there. Then they are saying that Muslim reverted direction.
You mean like the change of Qibla that Sheikh Abdullah was saying in the khutbah? It may not apply to that case, but I appreciate your point that you're not jumping to conclusions. But this comes under a topic. Very good. You're ahead of us a little bit. There is a topic also that we'll be talking about known as naskh, something that superseded. So an earlier ayah, like the gradualness of prohibition of drinking, for example, but that came after it. And one of the criteria of claim of replacement, that one was before the other. So that's a good one. But this one also has another important reason, and that is, Eric?
I believe that the first ayah that you quoted is referring to the presence of Allah rather than actual direction for prayer. It's referring to the presence of Allah all around us.
Okay. This is an interesting thought. Forgive me, in my classes I occur that when I'm trying to shoot, I'm training you for the maximum challenge that you can get your deen. Okay? Because somebody can come back and say, no, but the ayah that says that, it's not only about the presence of Allah, it is the context of prayer. That is why we're talking about the reasons for revelation, aside even from the sequence. The reason for revelation of this ayah that says, wherever you are, pray, that some Muslims, group of Muslims, were traveling at night. So they could not determine the exact direction of Qibla, especially if it's too dark, the end of the month or something, So they made ijtihad to the best of their ability and prayed. But when they woke up, and saw the sun, they realized that they were directing to the wrong way, unknowingly. And they were wondering, is our salah void in that case? It is, according to some, that the occasion of revelation of this ayah, that's fine. Fine that not you say, oh, I'll pray anywhere. You tried. Your prayer is not void because the presence of Allah. But it is not an excuse not to direct ourselves towards the Kaaba. Interesting example, right? So that you could look at it from more than one aspect. Very enriching. All right. But that brings us to the second question. A difficult, difficult but not so difficult. Well, suppose there is no way that you could think of reconciliation. Okay, what next? But before I move to the next, I must also have a precaution. You may not be able to think of any reconciliation in the limit of your knowledge, that are available around you. So the academically, for someone to say, these are not reconcilable and will never be reconcilable. A humble way is to say, I could not see any reconciliation. I could not at a given point. Maybe in the future somebody will. But anyway, but suppose what to do then? I can't wait for that future. All right. Then, like they say, a definitive report, muhkam, is better than mutashabih or probable. In other words, if somebody is reporting and says, for sure, this event happened, and as a result, this ayah was revealed. That's definitive, you know. But you have an authentic report, they say, this happened with respect to such and such thing. I'll give you an example as we come here. You know, it is not as explicit connection between the ayah. Continuing with this. For example, this happened and the ayah came. Versus, it was revealed with respect the hypocrites. With respect to the hypocrites. نزلت بشأن المنافقين. Would you consider that definitive? It's too broad, isn't it? You know. But if there is something that happened, that the munafiqeen something, as it happens in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, I find example. It speaks about certain people. For example, I just say it in Arabic and I translate it. وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ. It speaks about something at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And by the way, the a'jaz of the Quran, that even though it says they do that, and in their heart, and nobody says or said, did not come and say, this was not in my heart. Which means the speaker is not the Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows their heart, didn't dare, challenge that. Okay? Now this could be a reason, or occasion of revelation, that something happened and they try to play on both sides. We are with you. They go to their shayateen or friends. They say, we are with you. Okay? Now, if there is a specific reason like that, then you could say, all right, this is an occasion for revelation. But when somebody reports that this is about munafiqeen, it doesn't have to be this particular. I mean, the meaning itself is correct. But if you take it this way, then it is a general statement about hypocrisy, but not connected specifically. So the one that's connected, obviously, would have precedent, at least in that branch of reasons for revelation. And again, is it possible that two scholars or two references, sometimes even one reference, they say that there was more than one occasion for the same ayah? Is that logical or possible? I'll give you one example. It was reported, for example, that some women came to complain to the prophets, not really complain, yani عتاب, talk to the prophets. They were very outspoken, speak, openly and ask, rather than now people keep pushing and reversing because they're afraid that somebody says, you ask that question, you're a kafir, you're this, you're that. No, they wanted to get what is in their heart out. And that's what I always encourage people. Say, don't worry, I will never accuse anyone of any bad intention. Ask. If you have doubt, ask. So basically, they say, غلبنا الرجال. Men are really getting more advantages on us. Okay. We pray as they pray. We fast as they fast. But then men have a privilege over us because they can give sadaqah. Of course, it doesn't mean women do not. Khadija and many of the wives of the Prophet. But in other words, in a paternalistic community there, men were the ones who have the financial resources. And that's why in Sharia, they were responsible to support their family. Okay? So they have the advantage of giving sadaqah. But we poor women, we don't have that much. Most women. And also, they do jihad. Fi sabilillah, not only jihad has a variety of meaning, but also defense of the community, because it's not required of women. So it said in that sense, okay, وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِنَ الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Any Muslim, any person, any, not male or female, and that will become more explicit as the ayah continues. Any who does righteous deeds and is a believer, and then, so that there will be no doubt, because women were asking, if you stop at that, no problem. But it even goes beyond that. Men ذكر أو أنثى, whether male or female. See? So that leaves absolutely no doubt. So there could be other occasions also, similar question. So in that sense, actually, the reason is once, or a reason is multiple. You have one reason mentioned in this ayah, that this was the occasion, this like occasion. It doesn't matter. An ayah could be for multiple reasons. A reason could be a reason for two ayahs to emphasize and re-emphasize that. In fact, you could relate it to another ayah in the Quran. In Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُسْلِمِينَ إلى آخر ayah. The last ayah, beautiful. Surah Al-Ahzab, is it? No, not Al-Ahzab. That's in, I think, not Al-Ahzab, for accuracy. Inshallah, anyway, but it says, indeed, or lo, believing men and believing women, Muslim men and Muslim women, believing men and believing women, وَالْقَانِتِينَ وَالْقَانِتَاتِ, obedient men, meaning to Allah, and obedient women. Keep emphasizing men or women. Is that clear enough? But both of them relate to the basic theme of the equality in the matter of spiritual reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. There could again be more than one event, I just was ahead myself, that relate to the same ayah. For example, when in the Battle of Uhud, the mushrikeen killed the beloved uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and his name was Hamza. And Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, at that time she was not a believer, to take revenge of her relatives who were killed in Badr, ordered her slave to open Hamza, and she started chewing his livers. Ya satir al-ghil. Just revenge, the ultimate of gruesome type of revenge. So it was mutilated. His body was mutilated. And the Prophet ﷺ, as a human, and that's his uncle, and there was no direction on that. And he said, he was reported to have said, if Allah yudhiruna alayhim, if Allah give us victory over them, we will mutilate 10 of them, or more of them, or 100 من them. يعني, you know, when you get so angry, you know. And came the ayah to remind him, وَإِنْ عَاقَبْتُمْ فَعَاقِبُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا عُوقِبْتُمْ بِهِ وَلَئِنْ صَبَرْتُمْ لَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لِلصَّابِرِينَ. The beauty of the teaching of the Quran. Even the Prophet is directed by Allah. If you punish in a way that's similar or proportionate to what damage has been inflicted to you. But if you, not patient, the more accurate translation, persevere in patience, this is good for the patient. Okay? And that's what we call today in 14 centuries after the Quran taught this. What is that called in the laws of war? Proportionality. Like they say, all right, there is no constitution or law, national or international, that says you have no right to defend yourself if aggressed against. But because somebody pulled my ear and caused pain to my ear, so I shoot him and his family and his friend and everybody around. And that is the argument, unfortunately, that the Israelis were doing. There are terrorists in this high rise where hundreds of families or others did the same in Iraq, for example. You bomb them to death because an excuse. Suppose even a criminal or someone who should be arrested or punished is there, killing hundreds of people for this. So that's the notion of proportionality, if you have. But even then, it says if you have patience in situation where it doesn't threaten your security, to show magnanimity sometimes might work better. I'm not saying all the time. If somebody, a wanton criminal who's killing people, cutting people's heads, burning like what's happening in Myanmar, throwing reports of eyewitnesses throwing children in the fire, and all of this, and you say, oh, forgive, they have to be brought to justice. And there is a very important moral teaching in this, in the Quran. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. I think it's Surah Al-Nahl. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Don't respond to evil with evil. Respond to evil with goodness. For it may be that there may be someone between you and him, or her, of course, there is enmity, become your close friend. You cannot apply that to national security. When people are surrounding and raping women and destroying, and you say, no, ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. That situation is different. But this seems to apply more to individual insults. It's not like somebody say a bad word to me, and then I start cursing him and his mother and his father and all his family and his ancestors and his descendants. You know, that if you turn away, because for personal insult, actually you get reward for that and may make the person ashamed of himself. And that I for one, in my own experience, that I'm not just talking theory, and I'm sure many of you also might have that some people keep saying bad things about you, bad and false rumors and all that, and you meet them and you smile in their face and treat them kindly. Wallahi, I have one case, and I don't want to take much of my own experience, but I just give you one. There was one brother of that nature, and I wouldn't mention where or when. And to the point that if we're passing in the same hallway, I always say to him, Salamu Alaikum. And he looks at me, God guide you. no response, or Allah yahdik, God guide you. That's when he's in good mood. It's usually Arad. And then I pass again, I smile, I knew. Say, Salaam alaikum. That continued for a couple of years. And one time he came to my office, crying, and making a very passionate apology. I told him, brother, I forgot all of that. Don't worry, you don't have to apologize. He starts again being passionate, you know, expressing regret of what he did. So here was this ayah, not in the Quran, in a book. I found it in reality. I knew that I get insulted when I say Salaam alaikum. Still continue, smile, not respond, not in my face. Subhanallah. So I'm sure you probably have cases like that. So that's what, again, is just a sort of expansion on the notion of events like this. So there could be more than one event similar to that, and the ayah can be applicable to both of them. Okay. There are other issues, by the way, when it comes to occasion of revelation. Remember last time, and again I'll put that as a question only for those who were not here last time. How about Surah Al-Fil in the Quran? There is clear connection between a certain incident and Surah Al-Fil. When Abraha, Abyssinian king, marched towards the Kaaba with the intent of destroying it. We're not getting into the details as to why there are differing opinions to come to the Kaaba. And even the courageous Abdul Muttalib, Abdul Muttalib, the head of the clan of Quraysh at that time, you know, they went to the top of the mountains and they say, لِلْبَيْتِ رَبٌّ يَحْمِي. The house, they believed still in spite of their shirk, this is the house of Allah. It has a Lord who would protect it. Of course, they could not, because Abraha was using a tool of, or a weapon that the Arabs were absolutely unaware of, and they don't know how to cope with it. Elephants, with a master elephant, you know, these huge, mighty ones, is advancing towards the Kaaba. Anyway, some of the interesting part about it is that when they came close, the elephant did not move. If they turn his face right, he moves. Left, he moves. Back, he moves. Towards the Kaaba, he stops. معصلك زي ما العرب المصريين معصلك متربس. Anyway, what happened in any case, as the Quran says, that's the source. It's not just mere stories. ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا. That the Quran says Allah destroyed their designs or plans and sent birds throwing them with pebbles. They were killed, just like became like carded wool. كعصف مأكول. Anyway, that was what happened. Can we say that the reason for revelation of that surah was the story of Abraha and destruction, attempted destruction of the Kaaba? I'm glad that you were cautious. By the way, don't fear my criticism. It's all brotherly, wallahi. Okay, but is there a stronger reason, one way or the other? Or I'll give you a question, a leading question. When did this incident take place? I just like to make sure that you don't sleep on me. Okay. Let there be light, like they say in the Bible. Anyway, Barakallahu feek. It happened before even the birth of the Prophet ﷺ. But the limitation of definition of reasons for revelation, it is interaction between the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslim community. When an ayah comes, when somebody has a question, this sort of issues. But this happened before. In fact, do you know when was the Prophet ﷺ born? In the past, they didn't have calendars and so on. So they identified by certain events. And they say he was born in the year, not the year of Saturn and all of the year of the elephant. Because that was a famous story, amazing miracle that Allah saved his Kaaba. Okay? So he was born. So he was even if he were a baby at that time, before 40, before he started receiving revelation, you cannot say this is really an event, a reason for revelation. Now that gives you a clue to this one. In Surah, I think Surah Al-Najm, 54, it says, سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرِ. It talk about the mushrikeen. It says they will be defeated and will be showing their backs. تفضل على الكرسي. عليكم السلام. عندك كرسي؟ السلام مرحبا مرحبا. The crowds, الجمع, in a context like war. وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرِ. They will be running away. Is that an occasion of revelation? It happened later, but at the time when this ayah was revealed, it is something in the future, not current. In fact, it is said that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, when Muslims were really, really in bad shape, okay, to the point that they were afraid, people were afraid even to go out to the outhouse. You can see the curb that they were living in. And when this ayah was revealed, it was reported, that was in Medina, Umar radiallahu anhu said, أي جمع هذا? The Quran says جمع يهزم. The جمع, meaning the gathering, will be defeated. What defeated? One of us cannot go to the outhouse, and the ayah speaks about huge armies running away from us. But it happened later, of course, in the battle of Badr, as you know. So this is the kind of, anything in the past or something in the future, because that becomes a prophecy, not reason for revelation. All right. One more point. Some of the Orientalists study the Quran in a way that is not really, in spite of their scholarship, it's not complete and without the proper knowledge of traditional basic Islamic sciences. So they look at the Quran. They don't try to study what they call it in Christian and Jewish theology, hermeneutics. What was the nature of society, what was going on, just to know the setting of the study of the Bible. But when they come to the Quran, they're ignorant, and if information is available, sometimes they don't, rarely, some might be good, but they don't really pay much. And they look at two ayahs and they say the Quran is confusing and it cannot be revelation, because they claim there's something that's disconnected in the Quran. They say there must have been some haphazard revelation of some ayahs here, ayahs there, and after the Prophet ﷺ, somebody just got lumping this with that and so on. There are many, many responses to that, but we talked about some of these, of course, about the topic two. Second topic, who wrote the Quran? Who is the author, real author of the Quran? We spend a lot of time on this from various aspects, but this one, first of all, in some ayat speaks about Hajj, okay? And while speaking about Hajj, it says, وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. Enter homes through their proper doors. And by the way, proper doors could mean physical and it could mean also allegorical, like go to things through the proper channels. You know, وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا. You don't jump in people's homes. Yani, physically it applies, and also allegorically it applies. In any case, in that case it was physical. And anyone looking at that, he said, maybe they have a good point here, right? What's the connection between Hajj and entering home from the doors? If they studied more, but it required lots of work, they find that scholars already have explained that among the Jahiliyyah people, during Hajj, and he said they were doing Hajj, it was from Prophet Ibrahim, but they paganized Hajj, but Hajj started with Ibrahim. But in any case, one of the superstitions they developed, that if you are in a state of consecration of Hajj, if they want to go home, they don't enter from the front door, they have to go from the back. So it's connected with Hajj. Yes. Now, as Muslims, for Hajj, you don't have to follow that superstition. Enter homes, if you have to, from their proper doors. For example, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. Yeah. When the Quran speaks about what is known, but not in Islam, not in the same way at least, about the so-called forbidden tree. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, يا بني آدم قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا أي زينة ولباس التقوى ذلك خير. O children of Adam, we have provided you with clothing that covers you, yani your person, warishan, and also other clothing for adornment. But the garment, if you take it literally, the garment of taqwa is better. And some of them, what is that garment of taqwa? Strange, isn't it? And they conclude disconnection. Many, they can give you 1,000 mistakes like that on the same. See, the libas, physical libas, it covers, it makes us look dignified, and it covers our faults, if it's not faults, things that we don't wish for others to see. So it's a sort of modesty and decency. Taqwa is also a libas in the spiritual sense, because it is the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that would really accentuate your piety and your good characters and cover the bad of them. وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ. So the idea here is just jumping to conclusions. This is contradictory. This is, munqata' or so that's what. So we're through now with the first subtopic, occasion of revelation, and it is now 7:15, and there is the next topic we can't really start because it will be munqata, it will be just a small part, and somebody says all the lectures are disconnected, like the Orientals say. So I thought maybe we should stop at that. We have only about 26 or 25, I believe, is Azan for Maghrib. So if anybody have a question, fine. And then, of course, after that, anyone who wants to renew. تفضل يا أخي. Proportionality is one aspect, and the entire teaching of the Quran is another. And the way of interpretation also here need to make the dots fit together. And your question is very important and very relevant because it is not theoretical. I think you'll find some people who have very little knowledge of Islam, except that they blindly follow their leaders, whatever they are. justify killing children. Say, we don't care. Because they are killing our children. If proportionality is the only thing in the Quran, then we're mistaken. Because in the Quran and Sunnah, Shariha wa Mubayyana explain and teach us how to interpret the Quran, we find that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and not in the period of da'af, in the period of qawwa, strength in Medina, when people are going for defensive campaigns, what did he say? I don't memorize it all, but what I memorize is more than enough. لا تقتلوا امرأة ولا طفلا ولا شيخا فانيا ولا راهبا في صومعتي. بعض الصحابة كمان أضافوا من the same spirit ولا عسيفا أي أجيرا يعني غير مسلح. Basically, to translate into English, the strict regulation given to the Prophet ﷺ, even in the face of those who tortured Muslims and killed some of them, like the parents of Ammar ibn Yasir, those who put the dirt on the intestines of animals, killed animal on the back of the Prophet ﷺ, put dust on his head while praying, and those who previously even pelted him until he was bleeding. Okay? Even then, regardless, because the teaching is generalized, it's not qualified. Don't kill in a battlefield. Imra'atan, a woman. Of course, what's meant here, customary women at that time did not fight. They probably helped with logistic stuff. But of course, one had to understand it. If you get an Israeli woman with a machine gun and she's killing innocent people, then that's. But generally speaking, meaning one who's not capable or participating in fighting, which in their society, of course, women were not. Or a child. It means someone who did not reach even puberty, or in an age where he's strong enough that is carrying arms. It's not just because you happen to be there. Nor an old man, provided, of course, an old man who's not helping in the war effort. Because there had been an incident of one who was very old, but he was giving all kind of advice to hurt Muslims. Shaykhan Faniya, this is an old man who's في حاله, is too old. Okay? ولا look at the religious tolerance. ولا راهبا في صومعته. Not even a monk. So talk about other religions. Who is in his monastery. But footnote. Notice also, we have to expand our vision really and look into history, past and present. There have been cases, and maybe Brother Eric might know that better than I do, where in the so-called religious wars, clergy were participating in the crusades. Clergy were pushing the armies even to commit all that slaughter. So you don't say he has a garment, but under the garment is only a machine gun. That's all, So, because if he's for a religious clergy, leave him alone. We don't hate people because they don't accept Islam. The hidayah is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like I said, the addition of asif, and that was very important also, meaning even a young man who's capable of fighting, but he's not carrying arms, he's hired, sometimes many of them were slaves even, is hired or being enslaved by someone, and he's doing work like farming or any other thing for his master. Meaning, when you put it all together, what is the most modern and universally accepted term used referring for 14th century? What they call that? The protected categories, non-combatants. And that's even more general. It's not a matter of age only or gender or that, non-combatant. And that's exactly what the Prophet meant. A strong man, but he's not a combatant. That's one thing. Secondly, if we were to accept proportionality in matters that are strictly forbidden in Islam, then it is totally erroneous and serious and dangerous interpretation. I'll give you an example. Some of my Bosnian brothers and sisters, we had a large group of them many years back after 92, I think, or so. And tell me, and some media even mentioned that they would take a baby, nursing from his mother, pull him, put him on his mother's belly, and slaughter him. Slaughter him. Cut his head on the belly of his mother. If you get hold of a soldier who did that, do you go down to that level? Furthermore, there is something in the Quran that forbids us from doing that. In more than one ayah in the Quran, including the one in Isra, and also Surah Al-Ma'idah, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. Don't kill or take away the life of the nafs. It didn't say Muslim nafs or kafir nafs. Nafs, mu'ammama, a human life that Allah made sanctified except because of or for good cause. That's not a good cause. What did that child did to you? And that's when you, again, I was telling you about in the Rohingya, recently, just days. They take babies, throw them in the fire, killing them alive. Subhanallah. So if a Muslim, basic ethics and morals, even in the battlefield, it does not depart. The Prophet ﷺ even forbade Muslims from cutting a fruitful tree if there is no strategic reason for it. وَلَا تَقْطَعُوا شَجَرَةً مُثْمِرَةً. So I'm glad that you raised that question, because at the heart of this issue, unfortunately, we find some people justify anything they're doing. Allah yabarak feek. وإياكم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Just a quick thing, like I said, it needs more thinking. Look, if indeed somebody has the sign or the dress of the SS who are known for their brutality, and that is an active battlefield, and he's shooting at you, and you could get him, of course that's quite legitimate. But if he surrenders and is taken as war prisoners, No, you can't do that. You don't normally. The norm is not to kill a prisoner of war. You can have a trial, and of course, the trial in the battlefield is different from the court that which is acceptable universally anyway. If there are some trial and some evidence against him, then in that case it will become like capital punishment for capital punishment crimes committed by that person. Does it make sense to you? So it depends on this. But once, if he surrenders, maybe there could be a possibility of forgiveness. I'm going to take the must. Could consider the case. Somebody was pushed into that, intimidated, threatened, and so on. Then you have some discretion. السلام ورحمة الله. جزاكم الله كل خير. بارك الله فيكم إن شاء الله. Next Friday, as Sister Iman, who is the coordinator, who was here earlier, knows, inshallah, I'll be here again, and we'll continue until October, I think. There may be, inshallah, she will tell you, and they put the information on the, and I hope, inshallah, we start 6 sharp and finish by Maghrib at the latest, because Maghrib next week probably will be like 7:15. So to start, and if we finish a little early, like 7, fine, maybe some people want to renew or جزاكم الله خير, and inshallah we hope to keep the time, and I hope I also come on time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Tell something about
Of course. In many cases, yes.
لازم الواحد فيه شوية شوية.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think you have to click it twice. بعدين تطلع لحالها هيك راح تتفرج. click it.
دي أظن بتاعت المسجد.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استووا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا. ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى. الذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش إلا اللمم، إن ربك واسع المغفرة، إن ربك واسع المغفرة. هو أعلم بكم إذ أنشأكم من الأرض وإذ أنتم أجنة في بطون أمهاتكم، فلا تزكوا أنفسكم، هو أعلم بمن اتقى. أفرأيت الذي تولى وأعطى قليلا وأكدى، أعنده علم الغيب فهو يرى، أم لم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى، ألا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى، أم لم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى، ألا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى، وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى، وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى، وأن سعيه سوف يرى، ثم يجزاه الجزاء الأوفى، وأن إلى ربك المنتهى. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين. ولن يؤخر الله نفسا إذا جاء أجلها ولن يؤخر الله نفسا إذا جاء أجلها والله خبير بما تعملون. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.